Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Minnesota is famously the land of 10,000 lakes, but hitting even one of them without the right paperwork, that can totally sink your weekend before it even starts. If you're gearing up for the boating season, you're probably super eager to get out there and enjoy those amazing lakes and rivers. And whether you're a brand new boat owner or you're just transferring ownership of a used vessel, getting your paperwork in order really is the absolute first step to a stress-free season.
But real quick, before you back that trailer down the ramp, I've got to ask, do you actually know the rules before hitting Minnesota waters? The state has some pretty strict laws governing its waterways, and ignoring them isn't just bad etiquette. It can result in some serious fines and definitely cut your weekend short. So we're here to make sure you are fully prepared.
And speaking of being prepared and staying safe, you've got to hear this startling fact. Nationally, alcohol use is the #1 contributor to recreational boating fatalities. Minnesota takes this incredibly seriously. In fact, refusing a breath test on the water carries the exact same severe penalties as refusing one on the road. The state just doesn't mess around with safety, and that strictness, it extends right down to your paperwork. Safety and compliance really do go hand in hand, which is exactly why getting your registration sorted properly is so crucial.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover who needs to register, the registration process steps, understanding fees and taxes, proper display and maintenance, and finally, renewals and final resources. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. Who needs to register? Navigating the legal requirements.
There's always a ton of confusion between getting a registration versus getting a title. In Minnesota, you have to register all motorized watercraft, regardless of the size. Yes, that even includes a tiny little dinghy with an electric trolling motor. You also have to register non-motorized watercraft if they're over 10 feet long, so think canoes, kayaks, and paddleboards. On the flip side, a title is generally only required for watercraft longer than 16 feet.
Of course, there are always exceptions to the rule, right? If you've got a non-motorized paddleboard that is 10 feet or less, you are completely exempt. What if you're visiting from out of state? Well, as long as your boat is registered in your home state and you aren't in Minnesota for more than 90 consecutive days, you're good to go. The laws get highly specific too. For instance, a specialized duck boat is actually exempt, but only during the designated duck hunting season. The exact same rule applies to wild rice boats during harvest season.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the registration process steps, from paperwork to launch.
Look, I know dealing with state bureaucracy can feel like a maze, but we can actually break this down into 3 super manageable phases. First, you gather your documents. Second, you choose how you want to submit them. And third, you wait for your official decals before you legally operate your boat. Let's look a little closer at step 1.
Phase 1 is all about showing up prepared. If you're registering a boat for the first time, or maybe transferring ownership, you absolutely have to have your specific boat data. You need the manufacturer, the hull material, propulsion type, the exact straight line length from bow to stern, and the hull identification number, or HIN. Now, if you bought the boat used, you must bring a bill of sale. And listen to this warning carefully, folks. That bill of sale has to be signed by both parties in live ink. Actually, let me stress that. The state will literally reject photocopies or pre-printed signatures.
So once your paperwork is totally bulletproof, how do you submit it? Well, you've got 2 main choices. You can go in person to a driver and vehicle services office, the same place you'd normally get your car tabs, or the DNR License Center in St. Paul. Honestly, this is usually the best route for faster processing. Alternatively, you can mail everything to the DNR in St. Paul. But here's the catch with the mail-in method. You cannot legally hit the water until those physical decals arrive in your mailbox, and that can take several weeks.
All right, Section 3, understanding fees and taxes, breaking down the costs.
Let's talk budget, so you don't get any unpleasant surprises at the counter. Minnesota uses a sliding scale for base fees, and it's completely based on the size and type of your watercraft. A standard canoe or kayak starts at a really reasonable $23. But as you move up to a motorized boat under 17 feet, it bumps up to $36. And hey, if you're lucky enough to be registering a motorized yacht that's over 40 feet, you're looking at a base fee of $209. But wait, hold on, there's a little bit more math to do at checkout. You also have to tack on a mandatory aquatic invasive species, or AIS, surcharge. This is currently sitting at $10.60, and it goes directly toward protecting Minnesota's waters from harmful ecological threats. On top of that, expect a standard issuing fee of $8.50 for new registrations or transfers. Now, before you groan about all these extra costs, I do have some good news for you. All this effort and money, it's highly worth it because your registration isn't some annoying annual headache. It's actually valid for 3 full calendar years.
You pay once, apply your decals, and you are completely set for 3 solid seasons of boating.
Section 4. Proper display and maintenance. Keeping it legal.
Because honestly, doing all that paperwork means absolutely nothing if your decals are displayed illegally. The DNR rules regarding visual display are extremely specific. Your registration numbers must be placed on the forward half of the hull on both sides of the boat. They've got to read from left to right, be at least 3 inches high, and use block-type letters. No fancy cursive fonts allowed here. The color must contrast sharply with your hull, so definitely no white letters on a white boat, and the stroke width of the letters must be between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch.
And spacing is just as critical here. You actually have to leave a 3 to 4 inch space separating the MN prefix, the numbers themselves, and the final letter suffix. Kind of think of it like the spacing of a hyphen. If they're all just squished together, it's a direct violation and a super easy reason for the Water Patrol to pull you over.
Next up is the state validation decal, that little sticker showing your expiration year. This guy needs to go within 4 inches toward the stern or the back of the boat from the license number. Oh, and here is a fantastic pro tip for you. Take a clear photo of your registration decals with your phone once you've applied them in the spring. If a decal accidentally peels off or fades mid-season, boom, you've got a time-stamped record showing you applied it correctly.
Finally, Section 5. Renewals and final resources. Staying current. Let's fast forward 3 years. Your registration is expiring. How do we handle renewals and ensure you stay completely current with the law? Well, renewing is actually way easier than the initial setup. You have a few incredibly convenient options. You can head back to your local DVS office, visit the DNR License Bureau in St. Paul, or take the absolute easiest route. Just use the DNR's online license sales portal. If you do decide to go in person for any watercraft transaction, please remember this. Bring proper identification. You're going to need a current Minnesota driver's license, a clipped Minnesota license accompanied by the yellow receipt, or a current Minnesota ID card. Seriously, do not wait in line for an hour just to be turned away at the counter because you left your wallet in the truck.
So after all the forms, the fees, the live ink signatures, and measuring your decal spacing with a ruler, is all this administrative paperwork really worth it? Absolutely, for sure. It's a very small price to pay for ultimate peace of mind. When you're out enjoying any of Minnesota's 10,000 lakes, the absolute last thing you want is the anxiety of dodging law enforcement or getting hit with a hefty fine that just totally ruins your day.
Before we wrap up this explainer, just one final heads up. Regulations, fees, and those aquatic invasive species surcharges, they do change from year to year. Always make it a habit to double-check the current rules directly on the Minnesota DNR website right before the season starts. Empower yourself with the right knowledge, get your paperwork sorted, and have a fantastic time on the water. But you know, it makes you wonder, with boating technologies and electric vessels evolving so rapidly these days, how might these age-old registration laws adapt in the next decade? Something to think about. Until next time, stay safe out there.